in this wonderful high school I went to, Shortridge, we had a daily paper. It had a daily paper so long that my parents had worked on the Shortridge Daily Echo before I had. And so a whole lot of writers came out of Shortridge. Head writer on the I Love Lucy show, a woman named Madeline Pugh. I knew her when she was a student. Dan Wakefield, my brother, novelist and journalist, came out of there. And a hell of a lot of editors and writers for, trade journals or down on that level came out of Shortridge. And they could write because Shortridge had them writing all the time. That's the main thing. To honor the teachers as leading members of the community rather than servants like firemen or policemen. And it was a very high morale operation, and their salaries weren't high there at Shortridge. The Great Depression was going on, but the people were so proud, and they were so well educated themselves. And during the Depression, any steady job was a plum job. And so wonderfully educated people with master's degrees or doctor's degrees would consider themselves pretty lucky to be teaching in a high school.
Okay.
On our great victory in the Gulf, blowing the bejesus out of this third world country that hardly shot back, as killing all those kids, as that's what they were. You didn't dare say a word against it because Dan Rather thought it was all right. Peter Jennings surprisingly agreed with him. CNN agreed with them. McNeil and Lehrer looked into it, and this was all pretty good. And then they took a poll, and 87% of the American people thought this was pretty good. And, I mean, it was such a tragic thing. It's always tragic when you kill a whole lot of people. It's not fun. It's tragic. And, but, in a restaurant, talking to somebody else about this, I had to be very careful because people around you could hear, And there's CBS, NBC, CNN, PBS News, McNeil Lehrer, and all that are all at one with the government. It's one big ball of wax. They always agree with the president. They won't criticize him. They wouldn't criticize Reagan no matter what he said, no matter how absurd it was. And so you don't really need any censorship. We're all getting our news from one source, and the journals who do some reporting about what's really going on, about the rascals who cleaned out the savings banks or whatever. I catch hell for being a bad American is criticizing the government and everything. Nobody criticizes the guys who, got us to buy the damn black boomerang. What is it? It's supposedly invisible. Turns out to be not invisible. Billions of dollars. No, they're good Americans. The guys who cleaned out the insurance company and the savings banks, they're just businessmen. They're good Americans. The only bad Americans are people who say, hey, these guys are robbing us blind. I'm not interested in the youth. I don't write teenage fiction. I write grown-up fiction, and it is true that my books are taught in colleges and often in high school. But most of my mail is from people my age. As I'm not a writer, and people who try to lessen the impact of what I talk about as pacifism or whatever, or just mercifulness or compassion. That's what, he's just a writer for kids. Well, I'm like hell. My mail is from college professors and ministers. It's nothing I looked for, and very few writers can write for a particular audience. It really is a free market, and each one of us has to bloom as, if you're a tulip, is you damn well going to bloom as a tulip or a rose or whatever. And so then you see what the free market thinks of this, and there have been a lot of people who've liked what I've written, and so here I am in business, and that's all I do now because I've sold books in that quantity. It's interesting. The guy who's been showing me around here, who's working with the Indiana Humanities Council, I guess it's called. His name is David Hoppy. We've been, to me, because we've been driving around talking about one thing or another, and he talked about Americans' feelings about the arts, and you know how it's come out recently is, the outrage over certain exhibitions is the what the Mapplethorpe pictures.
Right.
And he said that Americans are used to seeing art in advertisements, in a beautiful picture in an ad. That's to sell you something.
Right.
And the words underneath are to sell you something. And so when they see anything written or any picture, they assume it's trying to sell something.
Trying to sell you that idea.
Yeah. And so they look at the Mapplethorpe thing and they say, this is an ad for buggery. And it isn't. And they're not selling it to anybody. But the American, I'm not buying that, and my kids aren't going to buy it either. Nobody's trying to sell it to you. They're just trying to make you stand in relationship to this picture. It's just you and the picture, and let whatever happens between you. But it's not an ad campaign, you know. Well, we used to be a merciful people. We used to be a humane people. The great generals during the Second World War, Omar Bradley, George Marshall, Dwight Eisenhower, their faces showed that war was a tragedy. And it is a tragedy. They're killing our young people. We're killing, we're killing other people's young people.
Young people.
And there was the one nut we had in that war is George Patton, who really seemed to enjoy it. But even he spoke of the courage of the German soldiers he was killing and saying they were good men, you know, and they were worthy adversaries. And now it's just fun. Look at how happy General Schwarzkopf is, and no tragedy on his face, no sense of tragedy. Look at tragedy. Look at Abraham Lincoln mourning all who died at Gettysburg during the Spanish-American War, which was a jingoistic war. It was America's most jingoistic. But when the cruiser Texas set the Spanish cruiser, I guess it was a cruiser too, the Vizcaya, on fire in the Battle of Santiago Bay and down in Cuba, the crew started cheering, and the skipper said, "Don't cheer, lads, the poor devils are dying." Now that's all over with. Now it's all just a hell of a lot of fun, even if you bulldoze them underground. Because, you know, they're hiding underground, and just send bulldozers over and suffocate them under there. And these are kids. And what I said last night, I spoke at the Indiana Roof there at a word-struck party. And I said, I'm a Hoosier, still talk like a Hoosier, and I'm a Shortridge High School person. And I'll tell you, a purely Shortridge, purely Indianapolis, purely Hoosier reaction to our great victory in the Gulf is I saw pictures of these Iraqi kids with their hands up, you know, their heads ringing with this terrible shelling they'd taken, thirsty, hungry. Well, I was in exactly that same condition during the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans had superior technology, much better weapons, and we were just kids, and we wound up, they sent the best they had, everything they had, the best tanks, everything, unexpectedly. And so I was ragged, I was hungry, I had seen a lot of people die, and I had the hell shelled out of us, and I was just a kid. And when it was all over, there were Americans like this, as far as the eye could see, kids, dazed, disarmed. And so when I saw pictures of those Iraqi kids like this, is my Hoosier response, my Shortridge response was, there are my brothers. Actually, I'm in a spot because I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I don't think there's any way we can prevent anybody from showing anything without empowering the government to decide what should be shown and what shouldn't. And so no, the First Amendment is a tragic amendment, a sickening amendment. There's all kinds of things are said and shown that I can't stand. And yet I realize that I can't shut off the violence. I can't shut off any of that, although it's making us sick. Laughter and sobbing are physiologically the same thing. Mm-hmm. And what happens if you see something alarming, even though it's fiction, your body will respond and it'll get you to fight or to run. And in real life, as you will face problems that can't be solved immediately, in your body will say, all right, either we're going to fight or run.
Yeah.
And so you're stuck with all this adrenaline and who knows what else. And the way you get rid of it is expel air through your lungs, carrying some of this out. And you can do this either laughing or crying. But laughter is just like crying very often. It's a response to frustration. And I say I prefer laughter to tears because there's less cleaning up to do afterwards. Well, see, there's a strong reason not to commit suicide because you leave that as a legacy to those who survive you, particularly your children, because it will seem like, particularly if a parent does it, it'll seem like one way to solve problems, and there's no question about it. It really takes care of everything, takes care of the mortgage. It really, and so you do think of, if you have been close to a suicide, particularly of a parent, whenever you have to solve a problem, you will think of suicide as, as to hell with it. And I've said in one book, that I hate algebra, and I think everybody does. And so if the problem is, if farmer A can sow 3/4 of an acre of potatoes in 3 hours and 15 minutes, and farmer B, my answer to the problem is I'm going to blow my brains out. But then, rather than solve the problem, just to go to sleep forever is so appealing. Oh, I like sleep, don't you? Yeah. Well, the fact that I don't. Have you ever been close to somebody who was a suicide? I laugh at the wrong time all the time. It's my response to grief, and a lot of people hate that, and they say, be serious, and I am being serious. I'm very proud of my state because it used to be a highly literate state, and I went to the greatest high school in the history of high schools and all that, and this town had lots of music, lots of books, lots of the arts. And my God, I go to find out last night that my state, Indiana, a wealthy state, with a great cultural underpinning from the past, is third from the bottom on SATs. It's third from the bottom. Well, that's too late to fix. It's like the Williamsburg Bridge and like Brooklyn Bridge and like the Holland Tunnel and all that. It's too late to fix. Yes, we got to try to fix it, but it's like turning around a tanker, It takes a long time to turn a ship like that. And right now we are third from the bottom in SATs, which indicate that we don't have a high degree of literacy. It's Arkansas and Mississippi are below us. Can you imagine? And so how the hell did that happen? Lots of things, because I'm fine, I'm prosperous. I live well, and so do my friends. And I'm a beneficiary of Indianapolis. Is when I came through, it was a swell public school system. All I had to do was buy my notebooks and my pencils, and I got this wonderful free education here. I assume that's what kind of country I was born into, that everybody got this kind of free education. So here I am, I got a swell suit, I got a nice house, I got a good car and all that, and I'm as literate as you can be. So I'm okay. What makes me happy, as lots of things do. And there's much happiness in my life.